Hello again. Today, well, this time I wanted to talk about relocation astrology again. Like previously, I talked about the Netherlands last time. This time, I want to talk about the other country. I, I guess you can say I had the fondness of knowing, or I have a fondness for because it's very charming. It's very different, and that country is Norway. Well, you won't really see it here, but this is Norway. If I go back, you see that? Norway right there. Actually, I'm just gonna go scroll up. So anyways, um, so Norway, you probably noticed there's two charts here. I'm not showing my birth chart here because you basically already seen that. You look at my previous videos, you'll see it about my videos about trauma and all those things. Here's one place and here's another place. They're kind of very similar, but if you probably notice, the houses are slightly different, and some of the planets have different placements. Yeah, like right here, you see this one in Orkongid. They are the Saturn. My Saturn and Juno is in the sixth house, whereas Kristiansund, they were in the seventh house. So very very different, and we're talking about the same country, but that's because it's different energies. I don't really want to talk about specifically about both of them, but I'm gonna choose. I think Orkongid is further up north. A reason I chose this place before is because it's further up north, and I thought, well, I love the cold and all that stuff. So I'm gonna use the right one here. So in Orkongid, I'm noticing that it's Pluto is conjunct to. You can see that here, right? So Pluto is conjunct. I'm going to actually use a markup here. So Pluto is conjunct the descendant here, which is interesting because in my chart it's conjunct my the nadir, right? So basically the fourth house as well. But because of this placement of Pluto and where Sun is, because they're conjunct, you can see here, descendant is in 18 degrees right here. Descendant is 18 degrees here. And Sun Pluto is in 21-26. So if you look at, it's at the very, for me, the conjunction, the orb there, or those people who don't know what orb is the distance between planets in accordance. So for example, if you have 27 degrees of a planet and you have another one that's 27 degrees, wherever it is, that's a perfect aspect, or is it absolute aspect, whatever the term is, it's perfect. But if it's slightly away from that, the orb is either maybe one is 27, the other planet is 28. That's an orb of 1 degree. I'm not getting into that much, but basically it's a little farther off from 18 here. My Sun and Pluto was far off from 18, but I still consider it a conjunction. So that also affects my ascendant. As you can see here, my ascendant is in Aries. What's like, woo, Aries, okay. So that means people see me as a sort of headstrong person. And in this place, in this location, in Norway, Orkonged, right? You can see up there. Okay. Right there. Okay. So, and yeah, so I appear kind of like headstrong. I appear very assertive. I have this mask of like very, probably also aggressive. And the way I dress probably seen as very just like very easygoing, kind of just like on the go kind of thing, and just whatever. Okay? But there's also a bit of curiosity, not a lot, but not a bit, a lot of curiosity. I'm always in the present moment, and always just like also being also childlike, but also kind of, people might see me as a person who's just like typical Aries, who's a defender of the people's, not exactly people's right, but the underdog. Usually fire signs are like that, I notice. But so that's how it would appear. But with Pluto opposite of that, it's the Sun and Pluto opposite actually in Libra. It would appear that in this case my experience would be to balance that, how I appear to people versus how I relate with them. Right? Opposition is all about finding balance and harmony. That's basically what that conjunction. I mean, that's basically what oppositional aspects are. And then we also have, because it's also conjunct my descendant, it has a strong effect of like power struggles with relationships. It has that sort of that experience I would have if I were to move to Orkangir would be that. But also not power struggles also, but like government sort of like probably figures, I'm not sure, but specifically with the head of organization with partnerships, the seventh house stuff. I'm going to shrink that one here. And also with finding myself in that place, in that area of Norway, where I would, I would feel like probably there would be like a sort of a power struggle, not power struggle, but like a displacement of power, or rather giving of my power to relationships and how I relate to people in that area. Personally, I don't like having planets close to the descendant unless it's a what's been called as benefic planets like Jupiter, because descendant is kind of, it's more about the how you relate with others. But this is also a good thing. I'm just having a bias towards it. But anyways, the point is that I would experience those power struggles as well. Now that Saturn is actually far from here, compared to if we compared it to if I were in Kristiansund, right on the left here, the left chart, there's the limitations is not really that directly experienced, at least not through relationships or contracts or marriages or seventh house issues, right? But then also I would have, because Venus rules my Pluto and my Sun, that remember that perfectionist sort of thing, working on details, being pedantic, overly concerned with detail, perfectionism, all that stuff, that it would appear in relationships where it might affect contracts and also agreements that I might have with any person or any organization. Seventh house isn't really organization, but it can be more an individual, more like one-on-one kind of relationships. This is what I mean by relationships. And also, but because of that, it's affected by Venus. But as you can see, Venus was trying to my Chiron here, but in retrograde. What that means is probably a loss or wounding in identity, and also probably body as well. Knowing that I have also Aries as my ascendant, if it's wounding in the body, that means I probably get injured. Not often, probably, I don't know. But because it's a trine through my Venus, it's through my relationships with people that I heal, who can probably help me understand more of my physical body, my health, appearance, more like also what I mean in how I actually can relate to others without losing myself. Okay, because that's what Chiron represents. So by giving also to relationships, in this case the workplace, right, sixth house stuff, then I can find relationships there. So I might come across people who I work with, or when I give service, which is sixth house stuff, or routines that I can actually develop, healthy conscious routines rather than unconscious, which is sixth house stuff as well, so that I can actually find healing, not exactly physically, but maybe internal healing, right? So it's kind of like a rebirth in a way. That kind of represents first house as well. So, which is funny because Pluto was opposition to my ascendant, which ties into the first house. So rebirth, birth, kind of very similar. Because the ascendant was in Aries, I have to look into Mars. Mars here was an square to my moon, which was in Aquarius. Because it's still in the 12th house, like the one in the Netherlands, emotions that I deal with, ups and downs, I deal with by myself in my dreams, subconsciously, internal processing, solitude, meditation, spiritual guidance, all those kind of things. That's kind of like related to the 12th house stuff, right? So, but anger to experiences in contracts and relationships and commitments to or agreements with other people might also happen. And that's kind of, or rather the aggressiveness might be perceived because we have Mars ascendant in Aries, which is, so Mars in this case rules my ascendant. But also because it was in Sagittarius, the energy isn't like, it's not like Mars in Leo where it just sticks there. The anger is just, it's kind of like, it's under a mutable sign, so it just goes away. And that's it. However, because Mars, now we're going into Mars, focusing on Mars, because Mars is Sagittarius, Mars also was ruled by Jupiter. In this case, Jupiter here, just like in my birth chart, Jupiter was conjunct my Saturn. So the anger would probably most likely be, I would be able to maintain that anger, just like I would naturally. But in this case, it appears in how I work with people in relationship in the workplace. So 7th and 6th house related stuff here. Okay, so another thing is, so we have the Mercury-Uranus conjunct here, opposite of Chiron. So again, even though I have that trine and harmonious aspect to Venus here, so expression of myself, losing unconscious giving of myself to relationships through the 7th house, but a natural trying to heal from that by relating to people and being open to it. By how does Virgo work here in this case for Venus? Working through it, basically. Working through the little details that maybe I need to reveal rather than hiding it through, what I used to do before, because Sun and Pluto was conjunct my 4th house. I was hiding it now. But now it's more like out there. It's out in the open. It's open enemies. And this will help me to really understand who I can and cannot allow into my circle of my sphere, right? You gotta have boundaries. Boundaries are good. So, in fact, my Sun would be, because it's in the 7th house, I would be more really Libra, so to speak, right? Rather than the 4th house, worried more about security, safety, emotional, this like inwards. It's more open. So my experience in that place in Orkanger in Norway would have that. Now going back to that, Pluto rules, going back to the 7th house, Pluto rules my Mercury Uranus conjunction. In opposition to Chiron. So even though I have like loss of self, I have to find balance in terms of understanding what relationships mean to me so that I don't lose myself. Kind of repeating what I said earlier, but that was pertaining more towards the descendant, ascendant. But in this case, because of loss in the physical sort of matter sort of based earth sign Taurus in Chiron, but also retrograde, even though there's a delay there because of retrograde, that finding that balance will eventually come through. It'll actually be more open because it's more open. It's in the more open houses ruled by fire, 1st house, and air. So it's a little more open out there. It's a little bit easier to deal with, right? But at the same time, probably not, because fire and air, in my case, my experience is that internal processing is a little bit more not too common, not something that your fire and air signs are accustomed to. It's more about the earth and water that are accustomed to internal processing, introspection, processing, taking away something. These are kind of like what you call like the introverts. Extroverts are more like the fire and air signs. I'm just using those terms lightly for those things, but either way. I hope that helps. I will see you guys later. Questions, comments below. Subscribe if you want to. It's your choice. I'm tricking you. In any case, I'll see you guys later. Bye.